It is 2 in the afternoon. You know this. You did not have to look. Even without your phone, even without a clock, you could probably have placed yourself to within 10 minutes. The day is divided in your head into a grid of hours, each one with a number, each number coordinated with everyone else's number, all of you synchronized to a system that goes back to Babylon. Now imagine that none of this exists. Imagine you are 30,000 years ago, and there is no hour, no minute, no second, no Monday, no September, no 2020. There is the sun, there is the sky, there is the feeling of being hungry, there is the feeling of being tired, there is the slow turning of the year. That is your entire timekeeping system. What does time feel like without numbers?
We tend to assume that ancient humans were missing something, that they lived in a kind of confused, vague time, drifting through their days without structure. This is not what the evidence suggests. They had time, they had structure, they had rhythm, they had a deep, sophisticated, body-anchored relationship to the passage of hours and seasons. What they did not have was time cut into pieces. Chapter 1. Time was made of events, not numbers. For most of human history, the day was not a list of numbered hours. It was a list of events. The day began at sunrise. Then there was the first part of the day. Then the time when the sun was high. Then the long part of the afternoon. Then the time when shadows grew long. Then sunset. Then the fire. Then sleep. The year was not 12 months. It was a series of conditions that came back around. The time when the snow falls. The time when the rivers melt. The time when the green things return. The time when the fruit ripens. The time when the herds move. The time when the cold returns.
A life was not a count of years. It was a sequence of roles: child, adult, hunter or gatherer, or both, parent, elder, ancestor. Indigenous languages often still encode this. Many do not mark tense the way English does. The Hopi language has been argued, though this is debated, to operate on time concepts that do not match the European model. In all of these systems, time was something that happened in events. The events were the units. The numbers came later, much later. Chapter 2. The sky was the only clock. The first public clock was not a clock. It was the sky. The position of the sun gave the time of day. The phase of the moon gave the part of the month. The rising and setting points of certain stars on the horizon gave the season. For tens of thousands of years, this was enough.
There are scratched bones from the Upper Paleolithic, the most famous is the Aurignacian Blanchard plaque, that the archaeologist Alexander Marshak argued might be lunar tallies, marking the phases of the moon across several months. The interpretation is contested, but if Marshak was right, somebody was already keeping a calendar in the form of marks on a bone more than 30,000 years ago. By the time we get to the Neolithic, we have unambiguous astronomical structures. Stonehenge is aligned to the solstices. The Goseck Circle in Germany, 6,000 years old, is a precise solar observatory. The astronomers of Mesopotamia and Egypt eventually broke time into smaller pieces. First the hour, defined by Babylonian water clocks, then very slowly the minute, and finally in the Renaissance, the second, defined originally as a 60th of a day. But for almost the entire history of our species, none of this existed. The day was not a row of numbered boxes. It was a long curve of light, watched by people who had no reason to chop it up.
Chapter 3. The clock you still have. Here is the part that has not changed. Your body has a clock. It is older than Babylon. It is older than the agricultural revolution. It is older than the species in its current form. It is the circadian clock, a set of biochemical oscillations that run, by themselves, on a cycle just slightly longer than 24 hours, anchored each day by sunlight. Cortisol rises in your blood as the sun comes up, peaks in the early morning, and tapers through the day. Your core body temperature drops in the early hours of the morning, around 4 a.m., and rises through the day. Melatonin starts producing as the light dims. Your hunger comes in waves anchored to the time of day. So does your attention. So does your alertness. So, in a strange and quiet way, does your mood. You have always lived inside a clock. You did not buy the clock. You did not invent the clock. Your ancestors lived inside the same clock and used it the same way for hundreds of thousands of years before there was an hour. Recent studies of pre-industrial communities living without electric light in parts of Bolivia, in the Amazon, in some pastoral African groups, have documented sleep patterns and activity rhythms that almost exactly match the circadian baseline. Sleep arrives shortly after dark. Activity peaks around sunrise. Energy dips in the early afternoon. The body, given the chance, returns instantly to the rhythm it has always known.
The clocks on your wall and your wrist did not give you time. They gave you a way of coordinating time with other people. They gave you a way of dividing time into purchasable units. They gave you Tuesday at 3:15, but they did not give you the underlying experience. The underlying experience was already there. So the next time you forget what day it is, try not to be embarrassed about it. For a brief moment, you have stepped sideways out of the modern calendar and back into something much older. The sun is still doing what the sun has always done. Your body is still doing what your body has always done. The clock on your wall is doing math.
The math is useful. It coordinates trains, it schedules surgeries, it tells you when to call your mother on her birthday. It is not, however, time. Time is what your ancestors lived in. The slow swing of the sun, the pause between hunger and food, the long, quiet space between sunset and sleep, the strange thickness of a winter afternoon, the way certain hours feel longer than others because they actually are. Not by the clock, but by you. You still have access to that time. It has been inside you the entire time. In this video, we just time traveled to a time where time was a weird but interesting concept. For more such facts and stories, stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm Kyurio. Move with the light.